Fake News on Facebook by me, Hayden Horn. To start, what is fake news? The Cambridge Dictionary defines fake news as false stories that appear to be news, spread on the internet or using other media, usually for political influence. So this is an issue because when you spread these stories to influence people's political views, they're fake, so they're influencing people in ways that aren't even by the facts. So you're influenced to believe something that's not true, which can change your political views. And in a 2016 study by Pew, 23% of Americans said that they shared a fake news story. So this is problematic because people knowingly shared these stories because they admitted to it. This doesn't even account for the people who unknowingly shared a fake news story. So when you add that together, it would likely be around half of people who have shared a fake news story. Also, foreign governments can share this fake news to influence elections in the United States. So on Facebook, such as in 2016 and 2018 during the elections, foreign governments have disseminated fake news on Facebook to influence people's views. And this will cause them to have the candidate win that they would want to win. It's better for their country and not the United States. Also, 83% of the time, people fail to identify headlines that were fake news. So when they read the headlines, they thought they were real, and it turned out they were actually fake. So this means that people are sharing these headlines, even though they're not real. And the connection to the stimulus. According to Edward Kessler, social media has become an incredibly important part of our lives in an incredibly short period of time. And also, he says, that everyone is a publisher and everybody is a critic on the internet. And you can see when everybody's a publisher and everybody's a critic, that means everybody can share, post, read, and form opinions about fake news. So this is problematic because people can form opinions on this. It's not even real. They can share it, spread it, and even make it themselves. Also, Martin Luther King, in a letter to people condemning his actions, said that in your statement you assert that our actions, even though peaceful, must be condemned because they precipitate violence. And his actions were actually very peaceful, but these people were spreading a sort of fake news of his time about him saying that he was doing violent things, even though he was being very peaceful and spreading information that would help the black community. So my research question was, is fake news becoming prevalent on Facebook? So we'll start with the frequency of sharing. Once a story takes off, the cycle of sharing keeps going on and on. So it starts when you see a story that's fake and it piques your interest. People usually, the first thing they'll do is they'll share this because they want other people to see this crazy story. And on Facebook, oftentimes when people share things, they will tag a friend so that friend can see it because they specifically want somebody to look at this. And when that happens, all of that person's friends can see the post that they were tagged in. So this keeps spreading through cycles of friends because those friends can also share it with their friends and they'll keep going and going. Also, fake topics are often more intriguing than the real ones because the headlines are just so crazy that people think this is a big issue and it should be shared with people. They think it's real and it's going to be like a breaking thing in an election or a news story. According to The Verge, the people who share fake news the most are the elderly. So this is often because they're confused by these headlines or because they want their friends to see it. And this also applies to younger people because these stories are very realistic and they're very confusing to people. So they'll share them and they'll be confused by these. And as you can see in this graph, 30% of fake news can be linked back to Facebook, but only 8% of real news can. So this shows that there's a big disconnect between real news and fake news on Facebook. We can also look at elections, such as in the 2016 and the 2018 elections. And the top 20 stories on Facebook for the 2016 presidential election reached 9 million people. But the vote margin for that election was only 2.87 million people. So you can see that this large number of people was a disconnect from the small vote margin. So this could have greatly affected the election because there are many more people who saw these fake news stories about the election than there are who voted for Donald Trump more than Hillary Clinton. Also, in the 2018 midterms, Facebook found evidence of fake news used to politically influence people on Facebook. And this was found by Kathy Steinmetz of Time magazine. And some of this fake news included putting members of the radical right and the radical left on the same street in the Charlottesville rallies and causing them to causing them to fight and create a huge controversy, and this greatly affected perception of the president and the candidates. We can also see by this chart about the top 5 fake news election stories. Crazy stories such as Pope Francis endorsing President Trump, which reached 960,000 people, or Hillary Clinton selling weapons to ISIS, which reached 789,000 people. And this is a large number of people that see these fake stories, and especially such ones shocking as these, because if you're a religious person, you might say, oh, the Pope endorsed Donald Trump, I might vote for him. Or if you think that Hillary sold weapons to ISIS, you're clearly not going to vote for somebody who would sell weapons to a terrorist. And also it shows that from August to Election Day in 2016, fake news reached 1.4 million more people than real news did. So that's also an issue. And this graph is from Business Insider and Statista. So the first solution would be to add labels to news stories on Facebook. And so the pros of this are that it's going to show you which stories are identified as likely fake, or as opinions, or as just straight news. And this will inform people as to what they're reading and how credible it is. But some of the cons of this is that it's a lot of man hours and a lot of work, so you're going to have to hire people, and you're going to have to do the work to get this done. And also, these fake stories would still be able to be shared. They would just have the label that says they're likely fake. Some of the implications are that fake news is going to be less prevalent, and that trust in Facebook news is going to rise, because there's going to be people are going to know what's real and what's not. But some of the limitations are that we're going to need more employees to do this, and some stories might be mislabeled, which will create an issue. And we can actually see this being applied in newspapers, as you can see in the graphic. They label each section, such as opinion, letters to the editor, so you know exactly the purpose of what you're reading, if it's just straight news or if it's somebody's opinion. And you can also see this in email. On Gmail, it'll flag some emails as likely fake or phishing, which is a scam used by online email. So that way you can see, what these are really worth. Another solution would be only allow mainstream sources, and this is going to decrease the potential for fake news, and it's easier to monitor. But some of the cons are that people might prefer other news sources, and it limits information. Implications are that Facebook news is going to be, fake news is going to be less prevalent, and trust in the news will rise. And also, it may not be widely accepted because people will think it's censorship, and it will create echo chambers. So in conclusion, this is an epidemic that affects everybody, whether they're on Facebook or not, because it can reach everybody by the internet or word of mouth. And also, researchers who analyzed the current method, which is fact-checking, found that the 6 organizations that thought these stories were true, they found that these were actually false stories in the ones they tested them on. So this is clearly an issue as to the current method we have now. And also, 32% of people get their information on Facebook, so this needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Thanks, Hayden. How did your research question evolve as you moved through the process? Did you start with this idea, or was this as a result of?
Well,
Tell us that story.
I actually started with the idea of just fake news in general, and I thought that was way too broad of a topic, so I narrowed it down to social media because of Source A in the Stimulus with Edward Kessler talking about social media. And then once I was on social media, I found that Facebook, that was the most prevalent fake news was on Facebook, so I decided we should focus on that because that's clearly the largest issue. And I also remembered that in the 2018 midterms and the 2016 presidential election, people were talking about fake news that was shared on Facebook, so I thought this would be really important to talk about.
Okay, good. And then as a follow-up, explain the level of certainty you have about your conclusions, sort of your solutions. Are you sure they'll work? Is there any doubt in your mind, and why?
Well, the first solution, which is adding labels, that I have less certainty than the other one because I feel like you can add these labels, but it's going to take a lot of time. You're going to have to read all the stories and investigate them. And also, once you label them, people can still just might ignore the label and think what they want to think about it. So I think that might not work as well. But I think the one where we would only allow mainstream sources on Facebook, I think that would work better because those sources, they actually have a reputation, and if they post fake news, they're going to lose some credibility, and people might not choose that institution anymore. So I think that would work better, but the only drawback to that is that people might not like those mainstream sources. So they're going to want other sources, and they might just leave Facebook, but at least it keeps information on Facebook all reliable.
Fantastic. Thank you.